The first time Vivian Wallace said my name in my truck, it felt like trouble. I was driving her home because her husband told me to. Mr. Wallace, my boss, does not ask twice. He just says what he needs and you do it. That night, the desert heat was still hanging in the air even though the sun was gone. My old Chevy's AC was fighting for its life. Vivian sat in the passenger seat, so quiet I could hear the turn signal clicking like a nervous heartbeat. Then she turned her head toward me and said soft as a secret, "Caleb, let's go somewhere more private." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Private?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I thought I was taking you home." She looked out the windshield like she could not stand the idea of seeing that house again. "Not his house," she said. "Not tonight." I should have said no right there. I should have taken her straight back to that gated place with perfect hedges and a driveway. It's so clean it looks like no one actually lives there. I sell cars for a living. I'm not a hero. I'm not a therapist. I'm definitely not the guy who gets involved with his boss's wife. But something about her voice made it hard to pretend I didn't hear the pain under it. Let me back up. My name's Caleb. I'm 30, living just outside Phoenix in a small apartment that's more practical than comfortable. I work at a mid-tier car dealership. Half the lot is shiny new sedans. The other half is used trucks with too many miles and not enough stories you want to hear. The job isn't glamorous, but it pays the bills. I'm good at it because I don't push. I let people breathe. My boss calls it a calming presence. I call it not wanting to fight anyone. I've always kept life simple. Work, home, repeat. I keep people at arm's length because it hurts less. A few years ago, I thought I had something real with a woman named Sarah. She was a graphic designer with a laugh. That made you want to be better. We dated for 2 years. She wanted bigger things, bigger city, bigger life. I didn't. She left for Denver and I stayed here learning how quiet a place can feel when you're alone. Mr. Wallace runs the dealership like a tight ship. He's 52, lean, always controlled. He's not cruel, but he's not warm either. When he speaks, people listen. When he looks at you, you feel like he sees what you're hiding. I respect him. I also fear him, if I'm being honest. His wife, Vivian, has always been a mystery. I'd seen her at holiday parties and charity events. She's 38. Always dressed like she stepped out of a magazine. Tailored dresses, subtle jewelry, hair pulled back like she never has a loose strand. But it was her eyes that stuck with me. Sharp, yes, but sad, too. Like she was smiling for other people, not for herself. We never really talked, just polite nods. That was the line. Boss's wife. Employee, keep it clean. Then came that Friday evening. The dealership was quiet. The last customer had left. I was shutting down my computer, ready to go home and sit on my couch with a cold soda and pretend my life was fine. My phone buzzed. Wallace. Caleb, he said, calm as always. I need a favor. I'm stuck in a meeting with investors across town. Pick up Vivian and drive her home. She's at the coffee shop on 7th Street. My stomach tightened. Sure, I said, because saying no to Wallace isn't really a thing. Good man, he replied, then hung up. No details, no thanks, just business. I locked up, climbed into my beat-up Chevy, and drove towards 7th Street. The coffee shop was one of those trendy places with exposed brick and string lights, the kind that charges $6 for a latte and acts proud of it. Through the window, I spotted Vivian at a corner table alone, staring at her phone like it was giving her bad news. She wasn't dressed like she usually was. No sleek dress, no heels, just a simple white blouse and jeans. Her hair was down, framing her face. She looked smaller, somehow, more human. I walked in. The bell above the door jingled. Vivian looked up and met my eyes. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she gave a small nod like she'd been expecting me. Caleb, she said. Wallace sent you? Yeah, I replied. He's tied up. Ask me to drive you home. She stood, gathered her purse, and followed me out without another word. In the parking lot, the heat clung to us like a blanket you can't kick off. I opened the passenger door. She slid in. I walked around and got behind the wheel. The engine rumbled. The silence between us felt heavy, but not awkward. More like something unsaid was sitting in the middle seat. Home's not far, I said, forcing a casual tone. Should be there in 15. Vivian didn't answer right away. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her fingers twisted the edge of her blouse like she was holding herself together. Then she said it. Caleb, she murmured. Can you not take me home? Quote. I glanced at her. What do you mean? She kept her eyes forward. Somewhere with music, she said. Somewhere with people. Anywhere that's not his house. The way she said his house made my chest tighten. Not our house, not home, his, I swallowed, looking back at the road. Okay, I said before I could talk myself out of it. I know a place. Quote. I turned the truck away from the direction of her neighborhood and headed toward the edge of Phoenix, where the city lights soften and the streets feel less judged. The place I chose wasn't fancy. It was an older lounge bar called the Desert Note, tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop. I'd been there a few times after Sarah left when I needed noise to keep my thoughts from winning. Vivian stayed quiet during the drive. The radio was off. All I could hear was the hum of the engine and the occasional rattle in the dashboard. Her perfume light like jasmine mixed with the worn leather smell of my seats, and it made me too aware of how close she was. When we pulled into the gravel lot, the neon sign flickered red over the door. Vivian stared at it like she was stepping into another life. You sure? I asked, holding the door for her. She nodded. I'm sure. Inside, the lighting was dim. The air smelled like cedar and whiskey, and a slow jazz tune curled through the room. A guy on a small stage strummed a guitar. People sat in quiet clusters, talking low, like everyone had agreed to keep their secrets here. We took a table in the corner, close enough to feel the music, but far enough to feel hidden. Vivian sat across from me and exhaled like she'd been holding her breath all night. When the waitress came by, Vivian ordered red wine without looking at the menu. I ordered a non-alcoholic beer because I didn't trust my own judgment right now. Vivian wrapped her fingers around the wine glass when it arrived, staring into the deep red like it was a memory. You know, she said finally, voice soft under the music. I used to be a piano teacher. I blinked. You did? Her lips curved into a small, fragile smile. Before I married Wallace, something in my chest shifted. Vivian Wallace, the polished woman from company parties, teaching piano to strangers in a quiet room. It didn't fit the picture I had of her, and that made me want to know the real one even more. Why'd you stop? I asked. Her smile faded. She took a sip. Wallace said it was a distraction. She said he said the sound gave him headaches. So I sold the piano. The words sat between us. 8 years of silence packed into one sentence. Vivian looked at me, then really looked at me, her sharp eyes unguarded for the first time. Do you ever feel? She asked. Like you're living someone else's life, Caleb. I opened my mouth, but no answer came out. And that's when she leaned forward, lowered her voice, and said the same words again, the ones that made my pulse jump in my throat. Let's go somewhere more private. For a second, I thought I misheard her. We were already tucked in the darkest corner of the Desert Note, hidden behind a fake plant in a low wooden divider. The bar was dim. The music was soft and no one was paying attention to us, but the way Vivian said it made the room feel smaller, like the air shifted. More private? I asked, keeping my voice low. Vivian, this is pretty private. She didn't smile. She didn't flirt. She just stared at her wine like she was trying to decide if she should take another sip or throw the glass across the room. I don't mean that, she said quietly. Not like that. My chest